You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here with episode number 103 of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. And our guest for this week's show is commercial insurance claims adjustment expert and CEO of Insurance Claim Recovery Support, Scott Friedson. Today's show topic isn't a very sexy one, nor is it something that we property owners like to think about, but it's a necessary evil when being a real estate investor because it's almost inevitable that if you're going to be in this business that you're going to go through a loss at some point or another. And I know that with speaking with Scott today, even though I've been through this personally myself, I've been through multiple losses with property, I still learned a ton of great information from this show and from this interview that we did together, and I'm positive that you will too. And in the show with Scott, you're going to learn the following. You're going to learn what a public adjuster is and when their services are needed. You're going to learn when it's the right time to engage the services of a public adjuster. You're going to learn how the public adjusters are paid and why your red flag should go up if a public adjuster firm tries to charge you upfront fees versus working on a contingency basis. You're going to learn the difference between contractors and adjusters. And you're going to learn what your options are if you disagree with your insurance company's claim assessment. You're going to learn a few public adjuster interviewing tips, which you can use when seeking out an adjuster yourself, and much, much more. And guys, if this is the first time you're tuning into the show, I want to welcome you to our incredible family that we have here at the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Or if you're one of the many thousands of listeners that tune in each and every week, I just want to let you know that we're super grateful to have you here, for all of you being here, because I know that you could be listening to 100 other podcasts at this point in time, but you choose to listen to us. So I really appreciate that. And like we do each and every week, I'd like to give a shout out to a few of our listeners who have taken the time to go over to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and write a review. And I've got 3 today. The first 5-star review is from L.A. Builder, and these are screen names, L.A. Builder, and they say, I'm a real estate developer out of Los Angeles, and I love listening to Kevin's podcast. It's one of the best podcasts on real estate on the internet. Keep up the great job, Kevin. All right, the second one is from Calvin Craig. Calvin says, this is an excellent podcast series with lots of great ideas and good guests, worthy of listening to. And then the third one here is it's the craziest screen name I've ever seen. It's like 40 characters long, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But whoever you are, you know who you are when you listen to this show, if this is actually your review. So anyway, this person says, just found this podcast series and fallen in love with it right away. This is really one of the best sources out there to help someone who is very busy daily to get started or stay tuned into real estate investing. Passive investing is what I really like to do, so I didn't think twice before I hit subscribe. Okay, well, all 3 of you, thank you so much for taking the time to go leave that review and rating. It really does help us grow the show, and it also makes my day every time I get to read these reviews, okay? So it really means a lot to me. If you're a listener to this show, you're a regular listener, and you've been listening some time, and you feel like this show adds value to you and your business, please take a few minutes, do me a favor, go over to iTunes, write a review and leave a rating, and I'll be sure to give you a shout out in a future episode. And just one quick laundry item here actually 2 quick laundry items before we get on to the show with Scott today. The first one is about the free 30-minute phone consultation I've been offering for a long time now. If you're brand new to the show, then obviously you don't know what this is, but basically it's a way for you and I to connect on the phone together. No ulterior motives here. And really this is just a way for me to connect with my listeners, to possibly give back. If you're working on a deal and you'd like my feedback on it, maybe you're working on a business plan, you like my feedback, maybe you just want to talk shop, whatever it might be, as long as it pertains to real estate investing, then let's hook up. Let's get on the phone together and let's talk for 30 minutes about whatever your heart desires regarding real estate investing. And if you'd like to schedule this call with me, you can go over to my website, kevinbupp.com, scroll to the bottom right-hand corner. There's a button that says schedule a call with Kevin. Click on that. It'll take you to my personal calendar link and give you some times that I have available. And I can tell you that I'm pretty booked up on these calls. I think I'm booked out a few months. And so If your question or if your topic that you want to discuss cannot wait a few months for us to get together, if it's like, if you're in dire need to talk with me, if it's a deal that maybe you're in due diligence with and the due diligence period is going to run out by the time we have a chance to talk, again, if it's something that is like critically important and time sensitive, shoot me an email directly, kevin@kevinbupp.com, and I will definitely try to squeeze you in as soon as possible, okay? And one other thing here is, if you guys happen to be in the Tampa Bay area anytime in the near future, that's where I'm based out of, I'd love to meet you. So be sure to reach out to me if you come to my area. I've met some awesome people already over the past couple of months that have been in the area, have reached out to me. We've grabbed coffee, grabbed breakfast, grabbed lunch, and I'd love to meet you. And so maybe we just coordinate a short meeting, maybe a coffee, maybe a lunch or something like that. But if you're coming into town and you'd like to hook up and like to meet, shoot me an email, kevin@kevinbupp.com, and we'll try to get it on the calendar, okay? All right, guys, that's all I have. So without further ado, let's get on to the part of the show you've been waiting for, which is our interview with Scott Friedson. So here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, we're excited to be joined by insurance claims adjustment expert and CEO of ICRS, Scott Friedson. Insurance Claim Recovery Support, or ICRS for short, is a firm of public insurance adjusters who exclusively represent the interests of the insured policyholder and not the insurance company. They specialize in large loss commercial and residential property damage insurance claim settlements and work on behalf of property owners like us to ensure that we receive the highest payout possible should one of our investment properties experience an unexpected loss. So without further ado, let's welcome Scott Friedson to the show. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, looking forward to chatting with you about this topic. This is one of those topics that we never hope we have to discuss or never have to think of, being property owners. But the reality is that if you're going to be an investor and you're going to be in this game for the long term, then more than likely there's going to be a point in time where you're going to have some type of loss that happens to your property, and you're going to have to get insurance involved and file a claim. And so, before we dig into what a public adjuster is, Scott, maybe we take a few minutes and just introduce yourself again to the audience. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe fill in the gaps from what I gave to you on that intro there, and just tell us a little bit more about who Scott is.
Sure, I appreciate it. So my background is I was a commercial real estate broker specialized in multifamily transactions in Houston, Texas for a number of years. And during the course of that, of course, everyone's focused on reward as an investor, and we're looking for rates of return on our investment. What I have found in my experience of also owning apartment complexes, brokering them as a public adjuster, is it's very important to also manage risk. And most people manage risk with good management, and that's an excellent way to manage your risk. But then in the event of something unexpected, people have insurance. Most people don't even bother to look at their insurance until and unless they have a catastrophic event, and then they try to figure out what do they buy. I can't stress to the folks that are listening enough how important it is to really understand that what you're buying, the protection you're buying, and focus on the terms and conditions and endorsements as opposed to just price. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get, and that cannot be true when you're looking to buy something to protect your assets and your finance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's we currently own and operate. My wife's an asset manager of 1,100 units in between Austin and San Antonio. She's operating about $110 million in multifamily assets, and so multifamily properties and insurance claims is my lifeblood and passion.
Okay, so you're an investor yourself then. So not only are you a public insurance adjuster, but you're an apartment investor yourself. So you kind of got both sides of the business. And prior to that, you said you were a broker as well. So you you hit all the nails on the head of every piece of this business almost.
Yeah, I look at my company and my business as a public adjuster. That's my job. But our business is investing in real estate and managing those assets.
Okay, good deal. Now, for those that are listening in that don't know exactly what a public insurance adjuster is, or what role you fill, or where you fit into the equation, tell us, take a few minutes and tell us exactly what you do, and then when we, the property owner, should request services from a public adjuster like yourself.
Sure. So a public adjuster is somebody who's an agent who represents the interests only of the insured policyholder. They're exclusive representative. It's kind of like when you use a broker. Right, they're your agent, but the building inspector that comes out is your vendor. You obviously want your building inspector to also be your agent because they have an inherent conflict of interest. So I say that, preface it, because it's important people understand that a public insurance adjuster versus an independent or a staff adjuster works for your insurance company. Those guys work just for the insurance company, and they're paid by the insurance company. A public adjuster typically works on contingency fee contracts, just like a real estate broker, but only represents the interests of the insured policyholder. A good public adjuster will review your policy. They'll negotiate with the insurance company. They'll interpret the policy. There's often a lot of gray areas. Specifically, you get to things like repair versus replace issues, matching, things of that nature. They also can be very helpful for business interruption losses, which is something that a lot of people don't think about. Obviously, if your property's been impacted and you have units that you can't rent anymore, that's also business interruption loss. So there's devils in the details, and looking in to see what your policy offers and what you need to do, because every policyholder has certain duties that they must perform, and your insurance company also has duties which they must perform. And so it's very important for people to understand what those obligations are, what your rights are, and how to protect your interests. And that's what a good public adjuster does.
Okay. And I mean, is it commonplace that the adjuster that the insurance company hires, the one that actually works for the insurance company, is it pretty much commonplace that they're not going to get you as much as a public adjuster might be able to get you? I mean, give me an idea of are there any circumstances to where a public adjuster might not be able to do better than the actual adjuster that is hired by the insurance company?
Well, I always tell people, let your insurance company do the right thing. Give them the opportunity to do the right thing. But because you can have a good experience with a bad insurance company, or a bad experience with a good insurance company, depending on who that adjuster is, and what the current environment within the corporation is. In my experience, we have always been able to recover more for a policyholder. There are circumstances where, hey, if you've got a fair settlement and you just want to get a second opinion, I think that's very prudent. And I do that all the time. People will say, hey, I think my insurance company's ripped me off. And I'll look at their policy, and I'll look at what they've been extended, and I'll go, no, you got a fair deal. This is why. And next time you get insurance, you may want to talk to your agent about this, and this. Often, though, the goal of, an insurance company, you have to remember they are a business, and they have shareholders, and they have policyholders. And I always like to ask people, so you tell me which is more important. Which is more important, a shareholder or the policyholder? Yeah. Right? It all depends. There's an inherent conflict of interest built in to the business model of insurance companies. So the only time that we haven't been able to get somebody more than what they deserve as a public adjuster is if the insurance company does a flat-out denial and they refuse to reopen the claim. Then you have an issue that would warrant an attorney. Okay,
gotcha. And exactly how do you as a public adjuster get paid? I mean, are there upfront fees that are associated with this? I mean, you had mentioned that some people even use you as like a second opinion. I mean, can we expect as the property owner to have to pay an upfront fee to get any of these services done?
Well, okay, so to get a consultation or have a good public adjuster just take a look at your policy or look at your claim, okay, there should not be any charge for that. But once they're engaged, so let's say we take a look at, let's just say something just happened, and the process is laborious. If you don't have the time or the resources or expertise, it would be maybe a good idea, especially with a large loss like a commercial property or multifamily property, to go ahead and engage a public adjuster from the beginning. And the reason I say that is that once an insurance company sets into a position on an insurance claim, it can be rather challenging. Not impossible, but it's more challenging to get them to change their position because they have to admit that they were wrong or they overlooked something. But then the other thing I tell people is, give your insurance company the opportunity to do the right thing. If you're feeling like, hey, this isn't going my way, or I'm getting frustrated, or not getting return phone calls, I suggest you interview at least 3 public adjusters and go with who you're comfortable with. Stay with the guys that are giving you a hard sales pitch. They're trying to get any money from you up front. A good public adjuster will work on contingency fee basis and work with you and the insurance company in a non-confrontational manner.
Okay, gotcha. So it is typically on a contingency fee basis. So, okay, fair enough. Well, good deal. So everyone listening out there, if you're going to a public adjuster and they try to get upfront money, it sounds like you need to go get other opinions because they're probably trying to rip you off. Is that a fair statement, Scott?
Well, I would say yeah for the most part. I mean, if they're going to charge you a flat fee, that's fine.
Okay.
But an hourly rate indefinitely. I would explore other options.
Okay, sounds good. Is there a minimum size of claims that a company like yours will handle? I mean, if I have a duplex and I have, let's say, I had a lightning strike that hit it, and it burned up some computers and maybe some lighting and maybe an AC unit or something like that. I'm talking, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 claim. It's a pretty small claim. Is something of that size even worth getting an adjuster involved with?
Well, that's a fair question. It depends on you. And what I do is this. This is my MO. I don't help anybody who calls and needs help. Okay. In other words, if a homeowner calls me and they say, "Hey, this your circumstance," I may tell them this over the phone. Okay, we'll try this, this, and this. And if that doesn't work, then call me back. And 9 times out of 10, I don't get that call back because whatever it is, that I told them to do, it works. For the smaller stuff, when you get into more complex, larger claims where you got multiple trade lines, maybe you have contents plus construction plus building code upgrade, law and ordinance, business interruption. You're talking about, a lot of moving parts. With something like that, you definitely, what we consider to be a large loss. Well, actually, what's funny is what insurance companies consider to be a large loss, most of them is over $50,000, which isn't that much money for in the grand scheme of things. But we generally target, it depends on where it's located, but, our sweet spot is $50,000 and up. We've handled claims that are, I think our largest one last year is about $3.5 million. And, but, we just helped a homeowner yesterday who called and said, we just need a line item estimate, and so we produced them an estimate.
Okay, good deal. And are there any types of properties that you don't do? I mean, we know you do apartment buildings. We know you just mentioned here if a homeowner calls with just their single-family residence that they own. I mean, are there any types of properties that you guys don't do or won't even get near or touch?
Yeah, it's funny because you'd be surprised. About once a month I get a phone call for a vehicle, and we don't do vehicles. Other than that, any type of real property. Condos, apartments, townhouses, HOAs, strip centers, all that, all in our wheelhouse.
Okay. And is your group national? I mean, I know you're based out of Texas, I believe. So, do you handle claims nationally, or are you just only based in the state of Texas? We are headquartered in Texas. I'm licensed in multiple states, and we do have relationships and alliances with several other firms around the country. So, if ever somebody does have something, we can usually get them aligned or refer them to somebody who's credible. Okay. And now I know that a lot of this question I'm about to ask probably depends on the type of claim it is, the size of it, and the complexity of it, but is there a general rule of thumb on how long this process usually takes? And again, I'm sure a lot even has to do with the insurance company themselves of who you're dealing with, but is there a general rule of thumb of what we can use of how long this process usually might take for the average size claim, if there is such a thing as an average size claim? Yeah, that's a great question, too. So, I like to tell people in terms of managing expectations, you're looking at 2 to 9 months with going the public adjuster route. And what we do is we do the insurance company's job for them. And we put together an entire, what I call a complete demand package. And that shouldn't take more than 30 to 60 days. That depends, though, if you need an engineer or not. If you need an engineer and engineers get involved, you're looking at probably 6 to 9 months. And that's not uncommon, especially with large loss insurance claims. There are other rights and remedies that people have beyond that they can get. If there's an impasse, there is such a thing as appraisal, which is a non-litigious form of settling insurance claims. That process can take it takes more time as well, anywhere from 6 months to a year, sometimes even 2 years. And then, of course, if things get really sideways and
if you're forced into litigation or you choose to sue your insurance company, that whole process can take anywhere from a year to 24 months, sometimes longer, from the time that you engage an attorney.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's make the assumption that we have to go that route, which is the route that most of us choose to shy away from, which is going into litigation and suing our insurance company. Mm-hmm. If we have to go that route to where attorneys have to get involved, is that something to where, like your company, we're working with your company already, we've engaged you. You will work with us to help find an attorney. I mean, do you work with attorneys? I mean, do you have affiliates that you work with that handle this type of law, or is that something we'd have to go get on our own?
Okay, well, so any good public adjuster is going to know some good commercial attorneys, insurance attorneys, but I really want to caution the listeners of getting aligned with a trigger-happy public adjuster that's looking for any excuse to file a lawsuit. There's an issue right now that is getting national attention. That's barratry, which is ambulance chasing. And there are, just like every other industry, there's good and bad. And there are some unscrupulous characters in this industry that are working with attorneys, and basically they're flipping files. They're getting paid a small fee and the attorneys are paying them, and it's driving up litigation. What you want is you want to exhaust all remedies. My analogy I use with attorneys is, if I know I need a hip replacement surgery, I'm going to try physical therapy, pharmaceuticals, chiropractor, acupuncture, everything before I have to go under the knife. But if I need to, thank God the technology is there, and there's doctors that can do it. But I'll exhaust everything beforehand.
Okay, that's a good analogy. Good analogy.
Thanks. But the short answer to your question is, the policyholder needs to find their own attorney. A good public adjuster will give you at least 3 names of some attorneys for you to recommend. If they just give you one and go, this is the person you want to go with, I would definitely go and look for other counsel, as well as any attorney that's worth anything in this industry is going to work on a contingency basis as well. So if you run into an attorney that is paying, wanting to charge you and bill you by the hour, and it's a plaintiff attorney for an insurance claim, I would definitely explore other options. Okay,
that's good advice. All right, well, now I want to talk about something that, this is something that a lot of our listeners probably have never thought of, if they know anything about public adjusters, is that if let's say they've had a claim, they've already filed the claim with their insurance company, they use the insurance adjuster, and things closed out, they've been paid on it. A lot of people don't realize that they have the option, there's the potential to open that file back up, right? To open that case back up and to bring in the services of someone like yourself, if they feel that they're, maybe they weren't, the claim, they didn't get as much of a payout as what they thought they were going to get, or it didn't cover the full damage of the loss. So tell us about the options that we have as property owners, that if we've already gone through this process, we've already closed out a claim, what are our options to hire someone like yourself to come back in, reevaluate the situation, and possibly open that claim back up?
That's a great question too. Yeah. So, and I always tell people, don't worry about perfection. Focus on progress. And so, if you do get yourself, in a claim situation, and you have X amount that you're working with, insurance companies can only indemnify you for what they can actually visually see or document in terms of damage. And so sometimes you'll get into a situation where, as soon as you start taking off your roof, you realize that there's 2 layers or 3 layers, or you start taking away drywall, and the sheetrock, the installation behind it is wet. So as you discover things and that are damaged, you can certainly supplement a claim if you find that after you've closed out a claim, or find that there's more damage or more things are needed, or you have additional money that you were spent. A public adjuster can certainly reopen a claim and continue to provide new information to the insurance company to help support your claim to get you additional dollars to indemnify you.
Okay. And how long do we actually have to file an insurance claim after a loss occurs? Like if we have a fire or some kind of maybe a hail damage or something of that nature that actually occurs on our property, how long do we have to even file the claim itself? Is there a certain time frame?
Yes, there is. And, different states and it's basically policy driven, and different states have different statutes. But the answer is promptly. The best thing you can do is file your claim promptly, okay? Provide notice to your carrier and to mitigate the damage as soon as you can. This is also very important, a lot of times when there's a catastrophic event or an act of God, such as a hailstorm or something like that, people, they don't go up on their roofs often enough, they just don't, and it's reasonable. No one expects you to be up there, looking at your roof every week. But sometimes people will start to notice that their neighbors are getting roofs put on, and that's when they first figure it out, and they go up there, and it could be 6 months later. Well, your insurance company may come back and go, hey, late notice, and put you on the slow track. The other thing that people need to realize is that some folks will be afraid of turning in an insurance claim because their rates are going to go up. And when it's an act of God, okay, the insurance companies aren't allowed to raise your rates when it's an act of God, okay? What will happen more often than not is the insurance companies will look at that county and they'll go, hey, X event happened in X county, and now that's a higher risk, and they call it a tier. So now they'll say this tier is a higher risk. They'll go to your Department of Insurance and go, hey, we suffered X number of losses in X county, and in order for us to remain solvent, or something along those lines, we need to raise the rates in this county. And, it almost always goes through. Versus if you are, if you're smoking a cigarette on your couch and you fall asleep and you drop it and it catches your property on fire, that's different. That's negligence. Now you're the high risk.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's assume that our listeners, they're out there, they've experienced a loss. They're at this stage where they need to seek out someone with your expertise. What are some of the questions that they need to be asking when they're looking for a public adjuster to hire on? I mean, I'm sure there's probably a list of common questions of things they need to be looking for and asking. So what are some of those items?
Very good. First thing is, how long have you been in the business? Go to your Department of Insurance and do it, not just an agent lookup of their license, but also their company, and make sure both their company and their personal licenses are registered with the Department of Insurance. Go to their websites. Make sure that you have somebody there with, that's showing their name and their face and their background. A lot of these guys are just shells. Be cautious of anybody that brings in contractors right away. If they start talking about lawyers and appraisers and contractors, a public adjuster is supposed to be, they should have no interest in anything else other than your insurance claim, and that's it. Okay, all that other stuff, if you hope for the best, you prepare for the worst. It's good to have resources available, but be cautious of that. I also tell people to, when you Google their name or their company, to include rip-off reports. Okay, look if they've been sued, barratry, all these little keywords that go along with their name, and make sure that they're not they're not hung up in some kind of a case or a lawsuit or whatever. I also caution people about working with people who seem desperate for business, high pressure sales tactics, guys in the business and gals in the business who are good. They're always busy. They're not going to be pushy. They're not going to bully you and use scare tactics. I call that used car salesman tactics. Mm-hmm. If you find that or feel that, trust your gut and keep looking.
Okay, good deal. And now, if a loss occurs, like if a major loss occurs, like a fire or something of that nature, is this something to where if I have a fire at my property, which is obviously it's somewhat public knowledge, should I expect to be contacted by public adjusters seeking my business, or is it something to where I actually have to go out and do the research and make the contacts myself?
Well, I would suggest that you do your own due diligence, but because it's public record when there's a fire, some of these guys have radio rooms and scanners, and they'll a lot of times owners will the first time they hear about the fires from a public adjuster instead of the fire department or a property owner or the manager. Some of these guys are super aggressive. Those are that's literally what I could refer to as ambulance chasing. And I'm not a fan. If you need a service of somebody, you should seek them out. You could take their card, say thanks a lot, come back to them later, but they're actually, in most states, there's a cooling off period. They are not supposed to be soliciting right after or during a loss.
Okay. Are there any other items, Scott, that we might not have hit on that are very important or that our listeners should consider before entering into an agreement with a public adjuster? I mean, what are some of the items? I mean, have we missed anything that you just feel is just critically important that we need to know?
Yeah, I would be cautious of any public adjuster that's providing you a ridiculously low fee. What I have found in my experience with that is anybody that's offering a low fee just to entice you, they're trying to sell you, is because they don't have any really intention of really working your file. Okay, what they're hoping is any evidence of bad faith, they're going to flip that file to an attorney or to an appraisal, and they're going to make more money on the back end from somebody else. Be really cautious of that. Excuse me. I'd be very cautious.
Not to interrupt you, Scott. Before you move on to the next next thing, there, what is a abnormally low fee or abnormally low amount?
Yeah. So different states require different fee caps, and some have no fee caps. But like in the state of Texas, the maximum a public adjuster can charge is 10% of the gross recovery less deductible. Okay. So if you have a $100,000 claim, your deductible is $10,000. That's $90,000. A public adjuster can charge no more than 10% of that $90,000, which is $9,000.
Okay.
But different states have different requirements, and you should definitely check with the Department of Insurance, and you can look at your statutes in your individual states.
Is it very common that a reputable firm would just charge whatever that cap is? Like in the state of Texas, I mean, would I expect that I would pay the 10% to get a reputable firm?
I would say yes. Of course, some of it is negotiable. If you're talking, millions and millions of dollars, that's a different story. But typically, you're looking at 10%.
Okay, fair enough. How about anything else that we need to know that's critically important?
Just do your due diligence and use who you're comfortable with. Check with the Secretary of State and make sure that the business is actually legitimate and operating. There are a lot of bad actors out there, unfortunately, just like any other business. So, no one cares more about your recovery than you. So it's really important that people get references and actually call them, and be cautious of the guys that are real confrontational as well. That are puffing their chests out and with big egos. That does not fly. You want to be working with people who are professional, credible, articulate, and know the business. But yeah, that's what I'd be looking for.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Scott, this has been very informative. I'd like if you would share with our listeners how they can get in contact with you. How can they learn more information about you and your company?
Sure. Well, we have a website. It's Insurance Claim Recovery Support. .com, and all of our contact information is on there. My personal cell phone number is 832-725-2878, and if anybody ever has questions about policies or a claim, I'm more than happy to help. I got to throw one more thing in there when you're looking at policies. Do we have another minute for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. One thing I always like to tell my multifamily owners and commercial property owners is when you're looking at your policy, first thing is you got to realize that most of the commercial insurance policies are from surplus line carriers, which means that they're non-admitted, and they sort of they march to the beat of their own drum. And so it's important to realize that they don't have to conform to the same timelines and statutes as an admitted carrier, meaning somebody that your Department of Insurance allows into the state. That may be a little complicated and difficult to understand, but there is a difference, and you should talk to your insurance agent about that. The other thing is professional fees. Some insurance policies for commercial property owners allow for recovery of professional fees that are incurred by the policyholder, such as an engineer. That's very important, because if you have a large property and you have a structural issue, your insurance company more than likely is going to have an engineer come out and look at the property. I highly recommend that owners do the same, and that's not something a public adjuster can do. They may know some engineers, but you definitely want to have your own engineer independent. And if your policy allows for the reimbursement of it, I suggest that you definitely engage a good engineer for your document your loss, because an engineer report at the end of the day is an opinion, and two people can look at the same loss and form two different opinions.
Sure. Okay, that's great advice, Scott. Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, I know I've learned a bunch, and I've dealt with this in the past. And as everyone being a property owner, I feel like this is a topic that not a lot of people know anything about until something actually happens to them or their property, until they have a loss, right? And there's a lot of people that probably have actually even incurred a loss that didn't even know they had the option of hiring an outside public adjuster. So this is a very informative topic, especially in that our listeners they're commercial property investors, and so they're investing in these larger properties to where if a loss occurs, it's typically going to be a bigger dollar loss. I mean, and so they really need to look at hiring someone like yourself with your expertise to come in and make sure that that they get the correct payout, and that they get paid for all their the losses that they've incurred, and so not necessarily to rely on the adjusters that the insurance companies provide them. So, Scott, this has been a lot of fun, very informative. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and you have a wonderful day, my friend. You take care.
I appreciate it. You too.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com, and we'll see you next Monday morning.